Now, the problem is not just that they're not teaching truth, they're actually purposely teaching lies. They're literally teaching poison to our children.
We were talking about the importance of teaching our kids history and the Constitution and all the things that relate to our freedom as Americans. What is the difference between what is being taught in the public schools and what is being taught through a program like Biblical Citizenship? It's being taught, of course, from a biblical worldview, but what does that mean? How is it different?
Yeah, first I'll say to the public school system itself, 20 years ago when I was a legislator, my complaint was that they weren't teaching enough of American history. They weren't teaching the Constitution or the Declaration. They weren't teaching these principles that were needed. That's why I passed the Teach Freedom Act, which requires kids to read the Constitution, read the Declaration. That was the complaint 20 years ago. Now, the problem is not just that they're not teaching truth, they're actually purposely teaching lies. They're literally teaching poison to our children. This critical race theory, all of these, they're teaching critical queer theory. All of these things are poison in the minds of our children, and they're literally teaching them to hate themselves, hate each other, and hate their nation. I think we're the only nation in history that's teaching its kids to hate their own nation. So it's really dangerous things. It's why we're seeing a lot of the turmoil we are in the country right now. It's why I encourage people, get your kids out of the public schools. Homeschooling is the way to go, or private school, but homeschooling, we've loved it. We've been able to spend all that time with our kids. And, we see the fruit of that investment in our kiddos. So that's just kind of my warning against the public school system. The difference in what we're doing is we're saying, first of all, we want our kids to know truth. We want them to know history so that they don't repeat the bad stuff, but so they can learn the good stuff and learn what works and what doesn't work. And the reason we do it from a biblical perspective is because our founding fathers in America knew the Bible has the answers to every problem you can face. And that includes government, it includes how you treat your neighbors, how you form your neighborhood and your society. What are your rules going to be for living in this compact of society, whether that's local government, state government, or federal government? And so we do that from a biblical perspective. Biblical citizenship in modern America is basically saying, as Christians, as believers, what does the Bible tell us we should be doing? And then as Americans, what does the Constitution say are the rules of the game? How do we do this? How do we govern? What do we want to vote for if we want freedom and prosperity and liberty, free, religious liberty and all of these? If we want that to be the output, then what are the inputs that will produce that? And so that's what biblical citizenship in modern America is all about. It's also fun. It's got a lot of cool people in it. Kirk Cameron and Congressman Barry Loudermilk and Rabbi Daniel Lapin and David and Tim Barton. There's a lot of cool stuff in there. Charlie Kirk and Bob McEwen. So fun people to learn from, but done in a very empowering way. It's very action oriented, so that after you do those lessons, there's something for you to do at home and in your community to take action.
So give kind of an example of what is taught. Like, how are you teaching people through this course? And again, you mentioned this in the first episode. This course is free. This is a free course that people can take. They can download the videos, they can download the workbook and take this for free, but not just for themselves and their family. Spread it out. Do this in your homeschool co-op. Do this with friends from church. Do this with your neighbors. So this is not something that, Rick is trying to sell. This is Rick's ministry of let's get this information out into the world because it's so important. We have to know what our freedoms are and how to protect those freedoms. But give some examples of how you teach that through the course.
Yeah. And I think one of the important things about it's not just about what we're teaching. It's not just knowledge, it's wisdom, because it's actually biblical knowledge, right? It's not just a bunch of information. It's actually, how do we apply this in a principled way? And so just to give you an example, in one of our episodes, Tim Barton actually takes us through the history of America with regard to this issue of slavery. So right now, a lot of Americans don't know how to feel about this. If you're a Black American, you're wondering, do I have ownership in the American dream, or should I hate America because of slavery? If you're a white American, you're wondering, should I feel guilty as a white American? Is there white supremacist guilt just because I'm white? And should I not be proud to be an American? And they've really created this dynamic in America where they've divided us and they've made us want to tear down America instead of build up America. So what Tim Barton does is they said, okay, let's just look at this from a historical perspective, not emotional, not just one-liners, but let's look at it in the context of history. And he blows away the narrative. He goes through the real history of what happened. He shows that America was a bit player in the whole slavery thing. You listen to some of these people, they actually say on the floor of the United States Senate, an Ivy League educated United States senator said that America invented slavery. Yeah. Now, Yvette, that had to be the worst Sunday school class in the world.
Because he never read the Bible?
Exactly. It's like, wait a minute, Joseph was sold by his brothers into, that's right, slavery. I think that was before 1776. Moses led the children of Israel out of Egypt, out That's right, slavery. That was before. Anyway, he goes through the history of slavery. He shows America's role. And the shocking thing, I actually sat back and watched Tim's presentation with my jaw on the ground, because the shocking thing, I didn't know this. We were the first nation on the planet to ban the slave trade. We beat England by 3 weeks. We were the fourth nation on the planet to end slavery, and 600,000 casualties to do that with the Civil War. And yet today we think, wait a minute, we were dragged across the finish line kicking and screaming. We were the last. No, that's all a bunch of lies. So anyway, he does that with facts. He does it with the stories. And the coolest thing is he tells great stories of Black patriots that helped to found this nation, that helped to win the war. And the reason that's important is so that Black Americans can see that and go, I have ownership in the American dream. It wasn't just a bunch of rich white guys that founded this nation. Some of the greatest heroes were Black patriots. So just bringing all of that truth, not shying away from the ugliness. We know slavery was awful and horrible and was wrong, but it was the condition of every nation on the planet at the time. So again, that context, right? Stepping back and looking from a 30,000 feet view, it changes everything. And then you realize, wait a minute, America actually became the greatest national force for good the world has ever known. You start realizing that we shed our own blood to save other nations, to spread freedom around the world, that even when we were attacked in World War II, after we defeated those nations, we took our own money and went and rebuilt the very nations that had attacked us. So the American story is amazing. We've been lied to for so long that a lot of people have bought that. So that's just an example. And again, it uses biblical references. It uses factual information, non-emotional, to say, hey, these are the facts. You actually should be proud to be an American. And here's how we can restore these things.